right. Welcome to the Authenticity Calling podcast. If this is your first time, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. We are diving deep today. And I know this is going to be a deep conversation because I am here with my spirit sister, fellow ICM mastery method coach, and really, truly such an angel in life, Petra Williams. Welcome. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this loving introduction.
Yes,
I
thank
assure
you.
you, I'm not a pure angel in life.
Well, I think in order to be able to have people accept their demons, you must be, because, and I know from our interactions, that has been my experience. So, Petra is a life coach, and she supports people with their relationships and their confidence. And she has her signature program, which maybe you can actually name it and talk a little bit about it. Because when we graduated and I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is perfect because we are also stuck in our self-rejection. And that's the first issue, that when we transform it, just makes magic happen. So tell us about your program.
Thank you. Well, starting with what it's called Love Your Demons, as
Right.
we hinted. And it's funny that you say that it's the first thing that, when we transform, that everything changes, because it's usually not the first thing that we start with on our personal development journey.
That's right.
Usually, from my own experience and from what I've seen, the beginning is much more positive mindset orientated. It's more like thinking positive and good vibes only, and just change your mindset, and everything will be great and awesome, and let's just do it.
Yeah.
And then it's actually very often over time, when you've tried the mantras and you've tried the affirmations and you've been visualizing, and and you've had some success, and maybe you feel differently sometimes, but you still feel kind of stuck, or it still feels like I'm coming back to my old self. When you realize that it this is the positive mindset is not an answer to everything,
That's right.
because you can't just lie to yourself into positive mindset all the time. Just like with everything, there's balance in wholeness.
That's right.
There's a space for positive thinking, and there's space for considering the risk, or considering the challenges, or being aware of possible negative aspects of anything. So it's actually like revealing and like lifting so much pressure when we allow ourselves to acknowledge and admit that we have those quote unquote demons,
Yeah.
or shadow, as Carl Jung would name it, like everything that is hidden, rejected in our subconscious from our own self. And I think it's just like really lifting the heavy weight of, well, I have to be, positive, and I have to, be achieving all the time, and like be in a special box.
That's right.
Like connecting to, the name of your podcast is Authenticity Calling, and it's really been such a journey for me regarding authenticity. Because as long as I can remember, when I was a little girl, I thought there is a box I should fit into.
That's right.
I should
Yeah.
be a certain way in order to be good, in order to be accepted and loved and praised, etc. And that's the case for almost of everyone. And that's why we then look for what is authentic, because we know then the box is not it.
Right. You'd be the good girl, be the nice boy. You're such a nice boy. You're such a good girl. Right. Oh, you neglecting your needs. That's so good because you look like you're behaving all the time and you have no desires. Yeah, we all grew up that way. That's bullshit.
Such a good girl.
Absolutely,
That's so good.
absolutely. Oh, I love it. And it's funny because I'm just gonna bring it back just for a second before we go on. I think a lot of what people don't understand is that energy is everything, and that when we speak an affirmation that is actually not true to us, we are literally telling a lie. We are creating an untruth in the world, and that actually is a disservice to us. That actually builds up the layers of self-rejection even stronger, and that is why they come back to bite us in the ass sometimes. We talked about this toxic positivity, and apparently it's actually very prevalent where I am in Vancouver. There was a Teal Swan workshop. She came to do a synchronization workshop in Vancouver. I had never been. I had no idea that she does these events. And so I just saw it on my feed, and I thought Teal Swan was the first person who opened my eyes to the shadow work, to that sort of like narcissistic codependent relationship, and really opened my eyes to the dynamics that were going on in the household, in my relationships, realizing that it actually, life is a mirror and it starts with me. So and again, if you're able to look at it from the perspective, and this really gives perspective to love your demons, then that means that no part of me is bad. I get to love every part of me, the part of me that was supported by mom and dad that said, be a good girl, and the parts of me that actually truly deeply wanted something different, that were maybe seen as shadows or demons or whatever it might be. But when we're able to fully accept all of the parts of ourselves, that's when the magic happens. That's what authenticity is all about, right? So I remember when we graduated and I started seeing you post, I just like something inside of me also just lit up and felt so accepted, and it felt like so much permission. It's like a breath of fresh air that we've taken for the very first time. It's like, oh, wait a second, all the parts of me are lovable.
And just when you say, when we fully accept ourselves, that's when the magic happens. I just want to like stop right there,
Yeah.
just to make sure that our listeners or viewers, or your listeners viewers,
No, that
don't
matter.
create that kind of expectations that only when you like fully accept yourself, that's
right.
when this nirvana comes. That's not the case, right? It's a lifelong journey. Like, don't expect to get enlightened by tomorrow or next week. But it's every bit. That's the thing. Like, it's every tiny step of that, like waking up, of that realization that, for example, when like I work a lot with people that come to me because of a specific relationship in their life that isn't working, and it might be with their partner or their kids or parents-in-law or stepkids, or with their bosses. It's usually a relationship that is important in your life that you can't get rid of easily, or you don't really want to get rid of. But it's like stuck in some sort of dysfunctional dynamic. You can just tell it doesn't work for you. It drives you crazy. You get very annoyed. You get very angry or frustrated, but you feel trapped in it. That's usually when you can tell these are all your shadows or all your demons, like coming to the party, and they want to be seen, understood, and accepted. And then how we do it is that we actually turn the mirror to ourselves, like you mentioned already, like life is a mirror.
Yeah.
Well, that's also a beautiful sentence, but what does it actually mean?
Let's go into that one, because I think a lot of people have that question. It is something we say all the time in the coaching space, and it's a philosophy from way, way back. I think Carl Jung, at least for me, that's my knowledge and understanding so far, is that he was the first one to kind of reflect that philosophy, that the external world plays out so much more dramatically to reflect what's inside of you. But I would love to go into your explanation of it, because it is, yeah.
I can't tell who was the first one who
Right.
brought it up, or this whole like metaphysical space. I like to bring it like very down to earth, very practically, how we experience it. And how we can imagine it is as if the world around us and everyone that we come across is a blank canvas. and we actually almost like walk around the world as a big projector, like in old cinema, the big projector, and just shine our own stuff onto these black canvases. And because the truth is, we don't see people as they are.
Mm-hmm.
We see them as we are. And what does this mean? Well, imagine a person, actually, like everyone, now imagine a person that you don't like really don't like in your life. And you think they're maybe horrible or manipulative or narcissistic, toxic.
Whatever label.
Hate
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Like, now this person that you see as all these things, probably, most likely, they have someone in their life who worships the ground they walk on. They probably have a best friend that would say, well, they are my rock. They are, my angel on earth, right? They might have had parents who absolutely loved them, or friends, siblings, or their own children. Everyone, there are 1,000 versions of each of us walking around the earth, depending on who's telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
So that this just gives you the clue of like, oh, yeah, actually, I don't know really what that person is all about.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my own experience of them from my perspective.
That's right.
And also in a specific time in life. And this is where the work starts, when we start turning focus from the other people to ourselves. Right? Like, stop blaming everyone else for being toxic and whatever. And let's really bring the mirror, because the truth is, if you can see it, it's yours.
Right. That's
If
it.
your brain can recognize it, that means it's familiar. So if you can see a toxic traits or narcissistic traits or manipulative traits on other people, ta-da, that means you have it as well.
Ding, 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 ding. You are the winner. So that is yours. So it's interesting you say that, because I think it's important to differentiate between every single trait we see out there versus the ones that we actually are sort of that trigger, that emotional response, that judgment that comes up. So I think observing people and dynamics out there don't necessarily, yeah, they can actually be reflecting a mirror of what's going on, because life, honestly, I believe always happens to you. And that's what everyone that I coach, that I work with, they walk away saying, oh my gosh, life really does happen for me. And I see it now and I appreciate it now. And I know that even if it's something that doesn't go the way I wanted, it is always reorganizing for exactly what is meant for me. And so I just want to highlight that sometimes when we see a dynamic play out, it could be an old dynamic for us to be able to observe and say, I used to show up that way. I'm so glad I don't anymore, right? It depends on how we hold the reflection. And so if there's a heavy judgment, as you said, when you see the other person and you say, oh, they're so manipulative, that means that you have that judgment and that makes it yours, right? It's not necessarily every dynamic we see.
I don't mind saying that it's everything that
Every
you see.
dynamic. Okay. Nice. Okay.
But the difference within you, that
Yeah.
difference with the emotional reaction, if it's just like really minor, saying, oh, well, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that, but I'm not there anymore. Or like really heavy emotional trigger. That just shows your journey, your progress. Maybe, oh, that used to trigger me and drive me crazy. And now when I see the same behavior, when I come across the same thing, I don't react to it anymore. Well, that just shows that you worked on something, right? You healed it, or realized, see it from a different point of view. So good on you in that case. If you can still recognize it, but genuinely don't get triggered, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's the beauty.
Yeah.
And then, so then the next thing is, okay, now I'm allowing myself, like opening myself up to admitting that I might have some of these negative traits, and those like so-called negative traits. And there's a whole process to it, and you know how to recognize it, because it's obviously it's the hardest with the so-called the quote unquote worst traits, when we're like, oh, absolutely, like I'm not like that at all, never in my life would I, etc. So there's a process to it
The super
to be
strong
able to
self-rejection. That's right.
totally, because you know your mind protects yourself, right?
Yeah.
But because what we want to recognize is that nothing is inherently bad or good.
That's right.
Really, the symbol for shadow work and loving your demons is the yin and yang symbol, where in that bright space, you've got a black dot. Why? Because too much goodness isn't good for you. Like too much ice cream isn't good for you, right? Not even too much like running, you know, isn't good for you. Too much is too much for a reason. And in the same way, in that black dark space, there's that white dot, which means that in that negativity of, you know, manipulation, self-absorption, whatever, there's a gift for you. And because the thing is, we always do things that serve us. We like every behavior is here to serve us. So the question is, those, you know, let's say manipulative people, what do they get out of it? What is it good for to be, you know, like that? Or what, how could it serve me to be like that? And then when you start thinking, oh, well, they always get what they want, right? Or they fight for what they need, you know, or they don't mind stating their boundaries, or you know, presenting themselves, right? They don't mind standing out. Whatever it is, you always find the gift that is there for you. It's like, oh, actually, that doesn't sound so bad. But the problem is that you won't be able to access this gift for you if you are not willing to see the darkness around it within yourself. If you're not willing to ask yourself, well, when in my life have I acted this way? Or under what circumstances would I be able to act this way? Because we were really all would, you know, we really all have everything. We have capacity for all emotions, all sorts of behavior, but it gets activated under different circumstances.
And it's so uncomfortable, right? Like when you first hear this, it's very overwhelming for a lot of people. Everything is there. Okay, wait a second. So that person that I have to talk to, that I'm forced to talk to every day at work, that just makes me crazy. I'm so resistant to that conversation every single day. Oh, they're my mirror. Oh, actually, I'm showing up that way to somebody else, or maybe to them. It's like that is very confronting. And so as people are hearing this, and as the clicks are clicking and the gears are turning, these realizations are happening, is there a moment of comfort in this realization? Because I know there is, and let's go there, because I really want to just not to take people out of their discomfort, because that is the point. The point of this work is to actually walk through that space that's uncomfortable.
But this is also why this isn't usually, you know, the first thing people do. Like my clients are generally people who have done years of self-development already. You know, they've read the books, they've done the seminars, they are often like coaches themselves, or yoga teachers, or like or just self-development enthusiasts, because you have to have the experience that going into discomfort is worth it.
That's
because
right.
this is comfort, like so confronting, so challenging, so uncomfortable. And I had this beautiful woman in the first round of Love Your Demons. And when we got to the point where we said, you know, okay, pick this person that you want to like work on your relationship with, describe their traits, and then just put it as a mirror. Like that's all you. Like you could see she had a physical reaction, and she said, "I'm not sure I'm in the right place."
I don't think I
You know,
can do this anymore.
yeah. She was so shocked with that kind of newness of this knowledge. And the person she picked was her own mother,
Yeah,
which
so
she
common.
had a you know challenging relationship with.
Yeah.
And
Are you talking about me, Petra?
I'm happy to have you in the next place.
So common.
So what happened there over the course of 6 weeks back then, you know, she worked through the processes really like, because this kind of work, like loving all these parts of yourself, is not a mental work only. It doesn't work if it's just like knowledge or like, oh, it makes sense. It sounds good. Yeah, that's probably me too. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like even Jung says, it needs to be a full body experience. So if you're feeling the feelings and feeling those bodily sensations, that's when you know you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So she worked through it, and she used to say that she would visit her mother, and after half an hour, she was just so done with all the negativity and all this. She had to go home, and like she would have headaches, etc. And after 6 weeks, she said she went to visit her mother again, and she was there for an hour and a half, sitting and actually like enjoying the presence of each other. And you know, this client of mine was in her 60s, so her mother was in her 80s. It's not like anything actually changed in her mother, right?
Yeah.
But the perspective changes so much that she actually didn't get triggered, and she enjoyed the presence of her. And about 6 months later, her mom passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when we went out for lunch and how she was telling me that this was the best thing she's ever done, that she was able to transform her relationship with her own mother after 60 years of life, and have these last few months just seeing her really differently. And that's the moment that you do it for.
Yes. Oh, that is such a
That-
gift. Imagine, but people go through this, and I'm joking because I mean I've been working on the mom stuff for a long time, right? And so that is the beautiful part, is that it stays with us. It's ours. It's not theirs. Nobody else has to change. And I think sometimes when people see that, they're like, oh, no, that's a bad thing because I have to do all the work. But it's actually so empowering to know that you are that reflection, and therefore it's your personal responsibility and gift to transform. And that is such a beautiful story, because who doesn't want to be able to genuinely and authentically and holistically feel loved and accepted and supported by their mother, right? And to have
You
that.
know, but this the thing is I wouldn't exactly describe it that in the way that then she felt so accepted and loved by her mother, because her mother didn't change.
Right.
And but it's the perspective and experience of her that just transforms the relationship, right? So just like you said, the other person doesn't have to change, and often they don't, but your experience of them changes. And it happens in the most interesting ways, because sometimes that person that used to trigger you, you see the same behavior and you're not triggered anymore.
Yeah.
Other times they actually stop behaving that way towards you.
That's right.
It's fascinating that you know, if like you used to be a pushover, they used to ask for things, suddenly they stop asking.
Yes. Yeah, because you stopped inviting that energy, right?
Absolutely,
You became a different
like
resident.
literally there was a person there sitting, and she said she used to be the biggest pushover at work, you know, doing work for everyone else. And then a few months later, her colleague in the same office told her, well, you are my role model in boundary setting. She was like, how? And this is the funny thing, because the work changes us on that unconscious and subconscious level,
Yeah.
we often don't realize that the changes as they are happening. It's only 2, 3, 4 months later down the line when something happens that used to trigger you and doesn't anymore. Or you get the feedback from outside that, you know, something's different, when that allows you to see the progress. So it's, yeah, it's that the biggest gem in it is that inner peace and that inner freedom that you get. Like I just had a coaching call this morning with like a long-term client of mine. We've been working together for nearly 2 years now, and she was telling me just this morning again how grateful she is, especially like for the confidence in her boundary setting. Like she's able to say what she wants and needs, and how she knows that she can, that she's allowed to do it, that she can, right? The permission that you spoke about. And now even her husband, you know, stands by her side and tells others how she is good in like setting boundaries with other people. And that's just so beautiful to see, that true empowerment for people who used to struggle with people pleasing for most of their life, right? For people who really were making themselves small and trying to please everyone else just to feel safe and loved and accepted. This sort of self-acceptance is groundbreaking, really. But it happens through accepting that, you know, you can be aggressive as well, and you can be like all these so-called negative behaviors and traits. But actually, if you see the gem in it, the gift, that gives you freedom to consciously choose in each situation how you want to behave.
That's right. Yeah, it's okay to say
there's
no.
a space for everything, right? There's a space and time and place to be generous, and there's a time and place to be conscious and you know, more rational and emotional, and you know, all of these dualities that we live in this 3D reality. There's space for all of it, and as soon as we allow the space for all of it within ourselves, that's when like life is lighter.
You're glowing. You're glowing when you talk about this, because I know that you're the catalyst for this for so many people. And that glow, if you're watching on the YouTube, and if you're not, if you're just listening on the podcast, I recommend you go over to the YouTube, because that glow, that reflection of that glow from your clients and really the work that you do, it is absolutely transforming of our life experience.
Thank you. But there's one more thing that I absolutely want to mention. Because most people don't know that we actually have our light in our shadow. And that's like the next chapter, the next program that I've created and have run several times now, which is called Embody Your Light. So what happens, just to explain really practically, when we are very, very little, when we're little kids, just like we can learn any language, right? Depending on what's spoken to you, what's around you, we can also freely express ourselves, right? Any behavior, any emotion, it's just there, no boundary, no like self-rejection. But then obviously through the system that we live in, we learn what is accepted and loved and praised and encouraged and what isn't, which is perfectly fine. But based on what isn't loved and appreciated, that's what we put, quote unquote, into our shadow.
That's right.
And that can be being aggressive, like, you know, be the good girl, don't shout, don't yell, don't fight, don't, you know, do this. So we put all of that, but that also can be your creativity. If someone says, well, that's really nice that you can draw, but that won't get you anywhere in life. You know, you better start learning proper things like English and maths and, you know, this, like, that's what's the focus on.
Or even without the judgment, I'm going to take it to the kid that makes a masterpiece on the wall and their parents just come down on them. And oh my God, poor child, because that is to them, that's the world. They've just created magic in the room. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's the worst thing that could ever happen.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
that does. Ooh.
And in these ways, and completely innocently, okay, this is not to like point fingers at anyone's parents,
Right.
because the truth is, being a parent myself, I know that with the best intentions, we will create, shadows in the minds of our children. It's impossible not to, and you never know what those will be, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just random how the mind interprets it as well, what we end up remembering, etc. So without any judgment whatsoever, this is what happens. And so we end up very often with our sense of self-worth in our shadow, with our confidence in our shadow, with our ambition or creativity or drive in our shadow, just because it wasn't exactly encouraged and supported, or the conditions weren't the best for these traits to thrive. And it's actually harder for most people like that come to my world, for those like people pleasers, etc. It's harder to embody and accept that you are actually so amazing. You are
That's right.
actually so beyond fabulous and like goddess like or queen like, call it whatever you want.
Yes.
But it's the step to accept your demons and accept your so-called negativity is uncomfortable, but it's still possible, because we all know deep down, and that and sometimes even outwardly, that we do get angry or even manipulative or stingy or selfish. Right? We do have those moments, and so it's easier to recognize, and in a safe space, easier to accept. But to really see, it's the quote from Marianne Williamson, that it's not our darkness, but our light that is our greatest fear. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
If you
Because we
say that to
ask
most people, they're
ourselves,
like, what are you talking? I'm not afraid of being successful. Actually, yeah, you are.
that's the thing. And so if this doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like go back to the previous step. That's okay. But even like, because even in Love Your Demons, we do touch on loving your light as well. But the funny thing is, and almost paradoxically, because it doesn't make sense, why would it be hard for you to accept that you're beautiful?
Right.
Right?
Right.
That you are just gorgeous and sexy and funny and
Yes. Yeah, no, if all of those things, but if all of those things caused someone else to feel discomfort, or if all of those things caused you to get in trouble, of course you're not going to feel comfortable in doing those things. If that caused a sense of rejection from the outer world, if that didn't get you love and acceptance, and I think that's what I was alluding to earlier about the relationship, because I think those are the parts of us that we start to heal. We start to be able to accept our light and fully love and embrace and incorporate that into our way of being, that actually you don't have to see your light casting a shadow on people, right?
Yes, absolutely. But again, coming to life being a mirror, just look around you and look at the people you admire. Look at the people you're jealous of. Like, how amazing are they? How are they doing this? That's also a reflection of your own like hidden, so-called hidden potential. Well, it's not hidden, it's there. You just didn't allow yourself, didn't give yourself the permission to show it yet, to own it, to go for it and grow it, right? Because the grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah.
um, so that's often a very surprising realization, but it really is a fantastic journey to not only love your anger and love your fear and guilt and and shame, but also love your passion, and all these just beautiful things. Because when I was working on that program, I was even thinking about the vocabulary, because we do have quite a lot of swear words in any language that are very emotionally triggering. But if you think of some like really bad swear words with like, or things that anyone would call you negatively that would trigger you, with the same like amplitude, to go into the positives. Like, what would someone call you so that it like hits you just as powerfully in a positive way? And I was thinking, well, we don't have that many of those.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't really even like navigate our conversations that way. So that, which is why many people, when they operate with words like you're a goddess, or you're a queen, or like all that, like they don't really connect with that much, because it lacks that visceral bodily sensation inside of you. It's more like it comes through the mind. It's like, yeah, that sounds nice, but really that experience sometimes lacks, which is why that's actually a longer journey often. And so the authenticity, from my point of view, is when you allow yourself to recognize that you have all of that.
Yeah.
That you have all those so-called negative traits, and you do have all those traits that you admire. And all of that and some beyond is you and your wholeness.
Yeah, I love it.
Just bath in it,
That.
just bath in it. And that's the journey, and that's I think the journey we are here for, to know ourselves as good as possible, to learn the lessons that we're here to learn.
That's right.
And it comes in waves, right? And sometimes it comes through the darkness, and sometimes it comes through the light.
That's right.
But yeah, it's to come into more of like grounded confidence, because that's the kind of confidence I talk about. I don't work with my clients so that they are confident and so that they're like shouting from the rooftops like, oh, I'm so amazing, look at me. But that kind of sense of grounded confidence, but when you know, like you look at yourself in the mirror, and it feels good, and you look at yourself and you say, I really like you. You see, like you look into your eyes and you see beyond your eyes. I really love the person you've become. And like maybe even looking at your face or whatnot, and seeing that you're not 15 anymore, and loving it.
Yeah. Oh, that is so, so gorgeous, Petra. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and the journey that's possible when we're willing to look at and love our demons and become that light fully embodied as well, and be all of us. And again, that doesn't give permission to us to act out in ways that are hurting other people. For example, when we say anger, I just want to highlight it's good to accept and acknowledge and be whole with ourselves. It doesn't mean our actions are always okay, acceptable, etc. And that's where the work starts, right?
Yeah.
That's where we get to own it. And
so that's the same like with raising kids, right? You teach them that all emotions are okay, but not acting on them in any way, right? Is not like, because we do live in a society, because we are connected to each other.
That's right.
So your freedom, in the sense of democracy, your freedom ends where another person's freedom begins.
That's right.
I'm a lawyer by university, so I feel like it's good to stay connected to these fundamental kind of definitions of what freedom really means, for example. And anger is a topic that we work with pretty much the most on any emotions, because anger is the most suppressed emotion in our Western society. It's the most suppressed in terms of its like how we acted out, how we behave when we are angry. It's more accepted when someone is sad or upset and they cry, or they're just quiet and they're, you know, within themselves. It's easier to accept that. It's easier to accept when someone feels guilty or fearful, because it doesn't seem to be dangerous for others. Whereas when we're angry, that's a usually very outwardly behavior, and it can be, you know, aggressive to other people or destructive to other people. So anger is a huge topic. It was a huge topic for myself as well. So I've got stories with that. Because I used to be so uncomfortable sharing my negative emotions with people. And I really didn't want to bother other people with my
Good
negative
girls
emotions.
don't do that. Of course.
Exactly. Good girls don't do that. And I actually ended up like so kind of full of those feelings that somehow I figured out that I needed a release. I needed a release. And at some point I started to release it in the way that I would eat a lot and then release it.
Oh,
And
we're going into all sorts of ways to that
medication. So it can get very destructive, right? Very destructive, and even self-destructive.
Yeah.
So I have all sorts of people in my programs that struggle with conflict or anger, either in the way that they cannot express it and they feel very unsafe in conflict and leave or freeze, or that they are very fiery, you know, and they just, you know, they're like, okay, I have a long fuse, but once you get it, it's everywhere, and I can't control it. So either way, you know, that's not a healthy way energy, right? A healthy way to navigate it. And this can, pardon me, this can all actually be healed and solved, honestly, like so quickly in a matter of a few weeks. Like that, there are amazing successes from people who used to be super destructive to themselves or others, even like physically or verbally, to now when they look back, they say, I don't even know how I could live that way.
Yeah. But when you're so stuck in the dynamic, it's just what you are, right? It is what it is, and you don't see it, it just is. And so so much.
And just like you said in the beginning, you know, the more you're trying to push it away and the more you're trying to get rid of it, like, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like that, because it's all connected. The more you put pressure on it, the more it grows. The
more
right?
boomerangs back.
Persist, but you persist, and then you're like, but how does it stop? How does it stop? Well, then you change the narrative completely and you go into acceptance. It's like, oh, whoa. It's a completely different experience, but then your experience of life is completely different. What used to trigger you doesn't anymore. What used to take you out of control doesn't anymore. And I think that's the biggest win. Just like how you go through your life day to day. That's the thing. Like when you mentioned Teal Swan, she says the same thing, that when someone really gets their sense of self-worth, it's not this like fireworks of experience.
That's right.
There's just so much calmness.
It just
There's
is
so much peace.
I love that. Petra, it's been so amazing to catch up with you. And I hate that we have to wrap this, because I feel like we could go on for hours. There's like 10 different tangents I want to go on, your past and all the things. And so I have had a few people ask me for mentorship in this coaching space. And so I think it would be really serving to just kind of wrap maybe your top 5. How did you actually go from lawyer to this amazing successful coach? Because I think there's a lot of people in the space that they're trying to find their feet and their way. And so it's like, how did you even come up with the name Love Your Demons? How did that become such an authentic, beautiful journey? Because it speaks to the podcast, right? And maybe that's where we could start next time. But if you could maybe summarize in a few steps, what were the key monumental changes or shifts or steps that you took into elevating your authenticity to actually say, yeah, I'm a coach. I do this work. This is my program. And, it is what it's a big question. And if you feel like we need a whole podcast for that, feel free to send it back and say, yeah, we're going to need to chew that one.
Thank you. I can pinpoint I really want to simplify it. I like simplifying things. So I will not even give you like a 5-step process, but just a few crucial points that I recognized on my journey, because I never set out to be a coach. My journey is not one when I woke up and I was like, oh, I want to become one, and how do I do that? Right. So for me, and the journey to like my authentic expression in the world today, who knows how that will develop later on, has really been by simply following what feels good and what feels right. Mm-hmm. So I was visiting all of these personal development events, and then there was one that particularly changed my perspective and felt like changed me on all levels. And I just wanted to stay present to it. And I came again and I started helping out. I just wanted to be in the presence of that kind of transformation and be able to create an environment where people can experience this sort of change and transformation. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it came very naturally, but just by really taking tiny steps that felt good, felt right. Like, I want to be in this kind of environment. Mm-hmm. I want to be near it. I think you kind of feel the pull, just like, I want to be here. So go and be there.
That's right.
It takes action, but and sometimes it takes courage and to ask and make arrangements, but just following that what feels right and having that environment. Because really, for me, just like you named it, but like for me to go from a girl who absolutely hated the idea of sharing her negative emotions to someone who has been coaching on radical honesty and shadow work and all this. Mm-hmm. That's honestly, I don't think that would happen if I wasn't in an environment that was supporting this development and change for years. Mm-hmm. Because I became like best friends with people who were deep in this work, and pretty much like all my friends in my wider community, like really dozens, hundreds of people, we're talking, we're all people who went through this kind of like trainings and learning more and more, and then NLP and this. So it was being constantly in an environment that supports this sort of change, and so having that safe space, because it's so uncomfortable. I really, really know it is, whether it is exploring your so-called darkness, or whether it's exploring your potential and your ambitions. Well, that's scary as hell as well. Having the people around you, and it might just be one person for you or a couple, it doesn't matter, but having that environment that supports you on this journey while you follow the right, like what feels right. Because that was actually the same for me with meeting my husband. When I think about it, we met, and we just felt like we want to be near each other. Just it just felt right to be near each other and close to each other, and let it just evolve. And it will evolve into something that is right for you. It's always the right next step, the right next lesson.
Yeah, following that energy, it's everything. Yeah, that is the calling.
I'm not saying that I always get it right. right?
I mean,
Like
that's
I
not the
also,
point though. That's
it's
not the
just,
point.
yeah,
The point is
well,
also to
those
learn.
are the lessons, right? Those
Yes.
are the lessons. I also got married before and I got divorced exactly because I was not listening, to some like inner voice. But again, it's all a part of that journey, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like anyone's getting it perfect every time and every day. But it's that the ability to see it and to own the journey and recognize when you do get it right and when you don't.
That's right. And to shift, to learn, to grow, to evolve. That's the whole point. We gotta mess it up sometimes, right? To be able to learn. Petra, thank you so much. I'm so sorry I have to end this so quick. I do have to hop off, but it was so wonderful to catch up with you. And I have a feeling we're going to be doing this again because we have still so much to dig into. I will share your social links, how people can get in touch with you so that they can start to love their own demons and embrace their light and really become in this state of peace and awe and appreciation of themselves, because really truly it is such a gift to be able to be exactly who we are. And I'm just so grateful for you for doing this work and for sharing your light and for following your path to be able to do this. Truly, it is such a gift and such an honor to know you, to celebrate you, and to connect with you and to share your gift with the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for having these conversations. Have
Yes,
a beautiful rest of the day.
thank you, sister. Take care. Bye.